So I am here at Qumran. It's a very popular site due to the discovery of the Dead Sea Scrolls in this region. In the caves that you see before me, as well as different parts of the Dead Sea region, they found scrolls. So I like to make that distinction with people when I come here, because there's a lot of tradition associated with this site. It's become very popular tourist attraction as they have kind of built this narrative that this was the site of a sort of monastery of scribes from the Yahad. Now clearly some of the scrolls were from a group called the Yahad, but that doesn't mean that they necessarily lived here and just wrote scriptural texts and such. All around, you can see Jordan on the other side of the Dead Sea. There's the Dead Sea, and there's Jordan all on the other side. And they actually found scrolls over there, and they found scrolls down towards the south. So it wasn't just like there were scrolls in this one location. And you know, the popular narrative is that around 67 CE, when the Romans were coming, that there was a Yahad community here that put scrolls in vessels and hid them up in the caves. But that, you know, not everybody agrees with that. And I always like to look at alternative theories and possibilities and such. And so they found a very elaborate water system. You can even see how the water comes down from the Judean desert and it gets captured in this water system that they have here. And some obviously have said that, well, that's because there's people living here and they needed water, and they would mikvah constantly 2 times a day to purify themselves as the sons of light opposed to the sons of darkness. But there's other theories that other archaeologists have posed, that this was actually one says this was a pottery factory and that's the reason why there were so many kilns and the water system to bring water down to work on the pottery, and that the cisterns were not really cisterns, but they were you know, they were water sources in order to make the pottery. So you'll see when you come here, they have signs, you know, that mark things that go with the narrative. Ritual bath here, but it doesn't mean it's true. So it could be, you know, I'm not saying it's not true, but as with everything, we have to consider other possibilities. Like, for instance, you know, there's no denying that there was enormous amount of pottery and vessels here, you know. So they call it the pottery storeroom, you know, for the monks. But could it be it was like the inventory warehouse? You know, so this could have been the factory here instead of a place where they gathered and ate. So, you know, again, I'm not trying to promote one theory over the other. I just think it's important that we consider other theories and not get locked in, because that's how traditions have taken over religion and a lot of things in life. And so now we go about believing a narrative that's not necessarily true. You know, I grew up in Christianity believing that Jesus was born on December 25th, you know, and I'm sure there's a majority of Christians today who would, you know, go to their grave, you know, believing that. And we know it's not true. You know, it's a myth that's developed into a tradition because somebody had an interest in promoting that narrative. So anyways, there were definitely Dead Sea Scrolls up in these caves, down the Dead Sea region to the south, and over across the Dead Sea into Jordan, or in Jordan, what's popularly known as Jordan now, would have been the land of Moab. So that doesn't fit the narrative that the Yahad, you know, hid the scrolls up there. Now there could have been a community here that hid some scrolls, but I believe that when the Romans were invading, that people were fleeing Jerusalem before the city was surrounded, and hid them as they were escaping. And that would make sense why there were scrolls down the Dead Sea region. We know that people fled all the way down to Masada, and that would explain, you know, people dropping scrolls off and hiding them on the way through. And it wasn't just scriptural texts, but it was a variety of different texts, variety of different languages, variety of different types, styles, and all that. So again, it makes more sense that people were fleeing Jerusalem and they wanted to hide their, you know, their most important items that they couldn't necessarily take with them, and maybe thought they'd come back and get them at a later date. To me, that seems to be the more plausible explanation for why the Dead Sea Scrolls were all hidden. But that is just my take on things, and so I encourage you to check it out yourselves and look at the history and come up with a educated decision on this matter. So this is Todd Bennett during Sukkot 2023 at Qumran in the Dead Sea region of Israel.